Hey, my name's Louise. I'm a trainee coach and I'm here with...
I'm Julie Blint, EMCC accredited coach.
What are we going to be talking about? Well, I've had lots of things on my mind recently.
Things That We Were Told podcast, where we talk about the things that we were told and how those messages might be holding us back. This podcast won't try to educate you or hand you the secrets of success. It's a conversation, one that we hope sparks your own thoughts and questions.
I really wanted to talk about those the patterns that have happened from past to present that we then fall into thinking are the norm, and they're not the norm. They've become us, but they're not us.
So when you say patterns, what's it things?
The patterns that I've personally got into is the worrier, the overthinker. And like people will say that to you, oh, you're just a worrier, or you just overthink. And then all of a sudden you kind of wear that label. And you kind of, that's what you say. I am a worrier. I am an overthinker. I am someone that's like scared of everything. And all of a sudden you become that thing.
So it sounds like we're going to talk about the things that we were told. So the name of our podcast looks exactly at that kind of thing, of those messages that we were given to us from friends, from society, from your family, and then we sort of absorb them into like being part of our personality and go forward this way. So like what you were saying, I'm a worrier. Like if you've been told that, then you adopt it as your identity, and that's how you then describe yourself. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess somewhere along the line, like I've presented myself as worrying to people, and then you hear that phrase, "Oh, you're a worrier," and then you say it to yourself, "Oh, I'm overthinking, I'm worrying," and then all of a sudden, because I guess we're all worriers at times. We don't have to just be that. It just be like you have a time where you worry. Like that's normal behavior, right? That's not like weird behavior to worry. I guess if you're doing it all the time excessively, then that's like you're making it become a habit where you can never stop worrying. And then you need to look at changing that behavior.
So can you remember like the first time that somebody said to you, you're a worrier?
It would probably be like a scenario like, oh, stop worrying about it. It's not really that big a deal. And then that makes you think, why am I worrying?
Okay, so it's not like somebody said you're a worrier. It's just somebody said like, stop worrying about this. And then you start to think, oh, maybe it's not normal to worry about this then.
Yeah. I guess like I have heard those phrases within my family about themselves, not like to me, that, oh, that's just my nature. I'm a worrier. And that like makes me think, oh, like maybe that's just how we are. We're just those people. We're just people that worry all the time. But actually, I don't enjoy that. I don't enjoy. It's not enjoyable worrying. So my thing is, well, why do we need to say? Why do we need to embrace that? Why can't we just change it?
So what you were saying there, I think is quite interesting, because you were saying like because other people in your family were saying about themselves, so I'm a worrier, and like because it's family, then maybe you start to identify with like, oh, that's my family, so like then I'm probably a worrier as well, because I know I'm worrying, so if you're a worrier, oh, it seems I'm taking after you and I'm a worrier.
Yeah, that's the thing. And we use that comment, don't we? Oh, I take after you, because I'm like that as well. Yeah. And like, but why do we have to take after someone? Why can't we like notice that we're getting into patterns that are not like that great, that are not good fun, and stop them?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, that sort of point that you brought up. It's like not necessarily like what other people label us directly, but that kind of thing of how then we sort of look for the patterns within our family and then end up like labeling ourselves because of that thing of like, oh, I take after my mom, this must be different, or this must be like, you know, a characteristic of mine.
Yeah. And like now I'm starting to like look at it within my own family, and I wouldn't want to call it paranoia. It's not like it's not paranoia, but I look at like maybe some things that maybe my kids say and do, and I go, oh God, this is like, it's repeating. It's like a repeating pattern that I do not want to see keep repeating. So like, how do we break it? You know, like I obviously have used those phrases along the way. I'm a worry, I'm a stress head, I'm these things. And like now I'm like concerned that perhaps my kids are now taking those titles or those feelings, and I really would like to like stop it somehow. Put a pin in that.
Well, the first thing that they say is the first step is awareness.
Yeah.
And so like you become aware of those things. And I'm sure if the audience or anyone listening like thinks back, they can start to identify as well those messages that have been given to them by other people, which can be direct labels or like you were saying, so adopted from family patterns and things like that. So, you know, if we take a minute to reflect upon those labels that we have ourselves, of ourselves, and then you think about where did they come from?
Yeah.
Like, why do I like say that? And then maybe like start to reflect upon, well, is it true? What's the evidence for and against this?
I think a good one as well, a good example of that is like in school. If, say, for example, you're not like, for me, if I wasn't keeping up with all the work, it would be easy to assume, oh, she's lazy. And it just, that word then, oh, she, like if you use that to a person, oh, they're lazy. If you hear it often enough, you're just like, oh, well, maybe I'm just lazy then. Maybe I just can't be bothered. But I think I knew, like as a young girl, that I wasn't lazy. But I heard that word quite a few times. Like, but it wasn't lazy. It was that I didn't understand, and that it was too difficult for me to try and understand. So yeah, maybe that presents as lazy.
Again, I think a lot of people with learning difficulties or neurodivergence, such as ADHD, have been labeled lazy because of those things in school. But again, even in your like interpretation of, oh, I'm not lazy, but this, but then again, you labeled yourself again by saying, I just found it difficult. But did you? Like, was it necessarily like because, you know, it was too difficult for you? Or was it more like the way the instructions were given to you, or, you know, you needed to see it written and not just said to you, or vice versa? Like, you know, it's interesting when you seem to like label yourself again.
Yes, yeah, it's that circle, isn't it? And that's something that I have thought about recently. Actually, is perhaps it wasn't so much about the learning, but more the learning style. It didn't suit me. I mean, I feel like we did have similar school experiences from our previous conversations. Did you ever hear the word lazy? You didn't hear the word lazy?
No, I didn't. So like my school experience was perhaps a bit different because I moved schools like every 2 years. So I was constantly having to integrate into a new system. And like I was really shy when I was a kid. Okay. So like a lot of the time I would just like not speak and not tell anyone I didn't understand. And I didn't want to admit that I didn't understand. So half of what I was doing, because this was like me in general in my life as a kid anyway, I would be looking around and trying to work out what I had to do from other people. And like you know and that's the way I've spent like my childhood, like trying to work out from other people what is it that we've been asked to do, or you know what are the rules here as well, because when you're new you're sort of like trying to work out the system or the rules of this new place and what's expected of you, they're not. So it was a lot of observation for me, and I think teachers, I always thought it was fun when it came to writing my report, because I was always like, what are the teachers going to say about me, because I was really quiet like in primary school and things. I was just like, I didn't really stand out a lot, and then that remained true until I was like 14, 15, and then things changed a lot, and then I would get sent out of the classroom for talking too much. And the teacher then, that's fun, going exactly into what we're talking about, because like my English teacher at the time, we were doing something and it was too easy for me, and so I was talking, and she sent me out the classroom, and the headmaster came by, and he was like, "What are you doing here?" And so I told him what happened. I said, "Well, I'd finished, and so I was talking, and so I and she asked me a question to try and catch me out, and I answered the question correctly, so she sent me out." So it literally stayed facts. That actually did happen. But then afterwards, she came to me and she told me I was manipulative. And I will never forget that, because my father, that was a trait that had been like a label that had been put on my father, right? And so when she said that, then I started getting this really sort of big fear. Oh my God, am I like my father? Am I a bad person? Am I manipulative? And I remember that sort of fear of being manipulative, and that message every time, something similar came up, or I did anything that could be construed as manipulation, I'd think back to her, "This is me," and her voice, and like worry that I was manipulative. I've now actually reframed that as I'm just really persuasive.
See, I love that you've managed to reframe it and use a new word for it, because you could have then began to be like, oh, overthink that and try and look more deeply into it. But you realise that you're not.
Well, that's it. But then, like, it's that sort of integration of the shadow self, if you want to put it in that way as well. So I met somebody and it helped me sort of reflect upon that. And sort of like, okay, what is manipulation? How can it be used? And then I realized, well, what is persuasion? So isn't it just if somebody has certain skills and they're persuasive, they can use that for good. And so, like, if I have skills around that, like explaining to the headmaster that I answered the question correctly and so got sent out, it's not, I'm not being a devious person. I'm not using certain skills for bad, which the same skill set, in my opinion, can be used as manipulation or persuasion, and persuasion doesn't have to be bad. So yeah, we're looking at that, and then I sort of realized, okay, like I don't have to accept this label. And if it's true that I have a certain skill set, does that mean that skill set is bad? Or is there a bright side to it?
Well, you've managed to unpick that a lot, which is good. Which is good, because you're very self-aware. Whereas someone who's perhaps not so self-aware, like hearing that or hearing other titles that people give us, they might just be more accepting, and that becomes them, which is a little bit concerning, isn't it? Like if we use that word lazy, and you hear it often enough, can someone just then become lazy?
That's it, but it's self-fulfilling prophecy. That's, so in sociology, that is a term. And for example, if you're told something like you're bad at maths or something, then you become bad at maths. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're told, oh, you come from a single parent family, you're going to end up working in a supermarket, then you can make those things happen.
Mm.
And so if you're hearing you're lazy, you accept the identity of being lazy, and then you start to act lazy, self-fulfilling prophecy. So it's a really dangerous thing.
So I'm really interested and curious for myself and anyone who feels like they might have become like a title. Like how is that the right way of putting it? How do you stop that, and what's a way around changing it? There's got to be a way to change that's not that deep.
Well, I mean, we've already been talking about that, because we said like the first step is that awareness, is like reflecting on where those labels that we have of ourselves came from and why we have them, and sort of reflecting, well, are they true? And then from my example as well, you can look at how, that label that somebody tried to give me, I reflected upon it and thought, well, actually, it's not bad. It's not that. And I reframed it in a certain way. So those are all steps that anybody can do.
Yeah.
To reflect upon those sort of especially negative labels that we've given ourselves, and like put them on trial to see, if they fit us, or as well, what we were saying with that thing, did we become that because we'd accepted that label? And is there any way to reject that? Is there any evidence to show the opposite? And I love having evidence-based things, like accumulation of looking and finding evidence.
Yeah, I agree. I just wonder why, as humans, like some of us, not all of us, some of us are so accepting of becoming those, like using that phrase, oh, I'm just a worrier. Like, why are we so accepting of that? Like, surely that's not a good thing. So, like, why are we okay with that? I don't understand.
Unfortunately, it's our brain's fault, but especially because when we're children, that's what we're literally doing. Our brains, when we're kids, are literally looking to categorize things. And so, like, a lot of these messages, the things that we were told, came when we were like 0 to 6 years old, when our brains are literally trying to categorize and understand the world around us. And like when you see like one dog that looks in a certain way and another dog that looks in a different way, you still have to understand that they belong to the dog category.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing with ourselves as well. Like a first bit before individuation that starts like in your teenage years, a lot of it is going to be like that sort of thing of like understanding who we are through the reflection of ourselves in other people and the things that people tell us.
Yeah. Yes, it's so true. It's just, so I guess to move forward, I'm trying to think of things that, well, like you just said, being self-aware. I feel like I'm much more self-aware now. So when I catch myself saying those phrases, I question it rather than accepting it. So that's really good. And the reflection, I've done a lot of reflection on the past, but to the point now where I want to move forward with that. I don't want to keep visiting it, but I've had to reflect in order to move forward. But I think the thing that's been helpful for me is to really face it, like really step into it, and try and, if you like, I just want to use the phrase "beat it down," because when it becomes you, it becomes so difficult to, like, you think, oh, it's just so hard to change. But I'm like, no, it can't be that difficult. So, for example, like me being like like worried about a certain thing, like let's just use traveling for example. I'll then start worrying, it becomes fear and all that stuff. What am I going to do about it? And recently I've made those steps to just go do it, even though yes, it was terrifying, just to go do it, because I don't need to be that person that is a worrier, terrified, afraid, overthinking. I can be a different version. I can be someone, if I want to, that's confident, that, will take challenges. And that's the person that I want to be. That's the person that I'm working to be, a little bit freer of all that stress, anxiety, fear, all that stuff.
I think it's also interesting, this label of lazy that you were given at school, because since I've known you, I definitely would not use the word lazy to describe who you are. And sometimes that's another important part of the process of change, is asking the current people in our life who know us, like, what do you think of like me? What characteristics would you think, or would you think, would you describe me as lazy? That you can test, you can ask those sort of, like, I'm a worrier, I'm lazy, all those sort of messages that we've been given, and manipulative, and then you can test them out on other people, your friends and current friends, and ask them, do you think this is true? And it can be interesting, the feedback, but as long as you remember that it might not be like, if they say, oh, actually, you are a bit lazy. It depends. Like, it's not all feedback is accurate. So you've got to reflect upon that. But it can be another interesting sort of step. to do.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I know that if I ask that question to people now, I don't think anybody would say I'm lazy. But the reason for that is I think I've spent a lifetime trying to prove, trying to prove to myself and to others that I'm not a lazy person and that I can achieve good things, because I think I probably left school thinking that a lot what they thought was because I came across not very bright. I didn't, when I say come across, not very bright because of my learnings. It didn't reflect that I was that clever. I was like, then no, I'm going to prove that I can do more. But that is exhausting. That is an issue in itself.
Yeah,
Like sorry, go on.
Because you started to overcompensate.
Yeah.
And now you don't know how to like sit still for a second.
Yeah. So like now it's got to the point like somebody asked me a question recently. So what is success like to you? Like, would you say you're successful now? And my honest answer was no. I wouldn't describe myself as successful. And the reason for that, because I've reflected, the reason for that is because I've always got a next step, a next goal, a next thing. Never actually stop and look at what. I feel like that has like been something I've created in order to like prove to myself. So that in itself is a good thing. It's a good thing because it got me so far, but like I don't know where it ends, because like I'm not comfortable with saying I'm successful, because I don't think this is what looks like successful.
That's interesting. I mean, like looking at the definition of what you think successful would be interesting as well, and seeing if that's valid or not. But as well in that thing, so it's interesting. So you've identified the fact that maybe you never sit down or is like on the go and always pressuring yourself to achieve more or do more. Is because you want to reject that label lazy. Now, how would you feel? What do you think would need to happen to like stop that overcompensation?
That's a very good question. It's a very good question. So I guess I have this idea of a successful person in my head. Like they have like a successful business, profitable, like it's a profitable business. They've got staff that are helping others. So they're not only have they built a business themselves, they're helping others to build their business. They're taking their own learning and making sure that it doesn't just stop there, that they help others with their learning as well. It goes on and on. It's quite nice.
I see that, yeah. It's like, oh my goodness. Like, if you've got to be successful, it's like you're teaching other people to do it, then it's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. And not that, you're financially free, you're supporting your family. There's a lot that goes with that successful. Or is that just stuff that I've seen and read? I don't know.
It's a good point as well, because I've heard you say a few times like things like, oh, somebody's like when you say, oh, somebody told me that we have to do a lot of podcast episodes and like have them banked up, and I was like, well, just because somebody else did that or thinks that's a good idea, then does that mean it's good for us? So it's again very interesting how we sort of absorb those things that other people.
Absolutely. And I still really do. I'm glad you've pointed that out, because I still really do that. I literally listen to a lot of what people say or do, and I take it in, and I'm like, yeah, but that's what we have to do. Why can't I just use my own mind and decide? Because I'm worried I get it wrong.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about all those types of things, like self-trust.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah, no, it is a big one.
Yeah.
And interesting enough, because I had a person with lots of trust issues, it was when somebody reflected back about what about trust in myself, and I thought, well, that's very interesting, because I'm always focused on trusting other people, or not, as a case may be. I didn't reflect, okay, but do I trust myself? And when I'm worrying about these things like finding a new house or, paying my rent or things, it's like, do I trust myself to do those things? And then interesting enough, because I look at evidence from the past at other times where I've had to find a new house, pay the rent, and all of those things, and they've always worked out. So I'm like, the evidence says that I can trust myself. So maybe I should trust myself and stop over worrying about this. And that's sort of the realization of, why am I putting all this pressure on myself? Or why have I become this over worrier in certain situations? What's causing me to worry really? And is it valid? Is it rational or not?
I'm so curious about that topic, trusting yourself, because I feel that I put more like if someone says, "Oh no, we go this way and we do it this way," I would abandon all of my thoughts because I'd have too much self-doubt to go, "No, it's definitely that," and I would just go in that direction. I would put so much trust in them, so much, and if they got it wrong, I'd be like, "Oh well." But if I took the decision and then I got it all wrong, I would probably spend months beating myself up or feeling stupid. And like, but if they got it wrong, it'd be okay. I just accept it. So that self-trust thing, it's a real big thing, isn't it?
But also looking at what you said there, then what you're doing is a coping strategy. And so much of what we are is coping strategies that we learn as kids. And what I mean by coping strategy is like things we do to protect ourselves, which is exactly what I was saying about my school experience when I changed schools or I didn't understand instructions or didn't know what was going on. Rather than putting my hand up and admitting to it, I would be like watching what was going on around me and like trying to observe. Now, luckily, because I moved around so much and saw so many differences, I think that's the only way then I started to look at what I thought was good or what I thought should be done. And but the thing that you're saying, like to be a leader now, like a lot of people look at me and they look at me as a leader and they let me take the lead, or they like me. Sometimes it's like the leadership is put upon me.
Yeah.
And people defer to me because I appear like a leader. Then it's kind of like, well, hold on a minute. Like, when did I apply for that job?
Yeah.
and then I'm looking at it as like a lot of people maybe are deferring because of the same things that I went through, but still going through. And all I've done is grown to be the leader of everyone because people gave me that job to do it. But I didn't apply and I didn't feel ready for it. Ever. But again, it's like that thing of for so long I didn't be the leader because of exactly the thing that you were talking about. It's self-doubt, worry of getting it wrong and things like that. And again, I was shy. So in group projects and all of those things, I wouldn't take the main role and I'd wait for somebody else to sort it out. And it's very interesting, like it was more like when I got a job as a leader that therefore, I realized my leadership potential and the fact I was good at it. So I got evidence and the fact I enjoyed it. And then it was those sort of strategies because, in the group messages with friends and they're talking about going out for a meeting up. And like nobody's saying where and nobody's saying what time. And I used to be one of those people who was like, oh, I don't mind, what's good for you? And when several people like that get together, nothing gets done.
No, that's a nightmare.
And it's a nightmare. So I started to come up with strategies again. And like one strategy was that I'm going to give people an option. So I was like, do you want to go here, or here? Do you want to meet at this time or this time, knowing they'll choose the middle time? And so like I came up with this strategy offering people choices, which helped me because I didn't want to be the person deciding everything all the time and telling everyone what to do all the time. I was like, that's not, So I was like, okay, this strategy works for me. It feels comfortable for me. It's something I can do without it being me doing all the, deciding because I overthink a lot of like, oh, but what about this and this and but the option strategy worked. And so that coming up with those, like for you as well, this idea of what is successful, like it can be quite extreme. And then you sort of like, what would be a comfortable way for me to label myself as successful? If we think this word is too big or too bright and shiny, is there a word that I feel comfortable with rather than...
That's interesting. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of one. but that's a very interesting way to put it.
Well, you can modify it with quite successful.
I mean, that just seems a little bit of yeah, that doesn't seem quite good enough. I don't think I'd want to settle for that, would you? Quite successful.
I mean, no, because there's a concept of good enough in psychology or trauma therapy. But good enough doesn't mean good enough is to try and help people. So especially people who had difficult childhoods and things like this, they often become perfectionists. So the idea of working with those people is to change the idea of being a perfectionist to good enough. So what is a good enough podcast episode? What is like a good enough success? And things like that. So it's not like in that way, oh, it's just kind of like average, but it's more like, okay, it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be good enough.
Good enough. How would you describe yourself?
Good enough. Work in progress. Never going to be perfect.
Never say never.
Oh, no. Don't want to be.
But would you say you're a perfectionist?
Well, this is one of those weird things. Like people started to say it, but this goes against everything we've said up until now a bit, because like people started to say I was a perfectionist, and I'm like, I'm not a perfectionist. What? I'm not a perfectionist. And then suddenly I started to reflect. I'm like, well, like, why won't I sort of publish this article? Why won't I publish this course? What am I doing? Why am I rewriting my slides a million times? Why am I writing this WhatsApp message to someone 1 million times? And I realized that, oh my goodness, maybe there is something to this. And I've been dismissing this label of perfectionist for so long. And then I started to realize, well, actually, because I do cut corners and a lot of things, and so I didn't think that I was a perfectionist. But then I separated cutting corners in certain things, and this idea of like, oh, why isn't this good enough for me? Why am I not doing a podcast? Because why do I think that I'm not good enough? Because I'm thinking it has to be perfect. And the same thing I've said to you before, doing this is like, oh, I need some to prepare because this is an important topic for me. And I want to get it right, because I used to really have that fear of going on the internet and publishing what I say in a spontaneous way on it. And I used to have to script everything because I didn't trust myself, going back to that thing. I didn't trust myself to be able to communicate what I wanted to communicate at the time I needed to communicate it. Although evidence says different sometimes.
What is the worry? So let's just use podcast, for example. What is the worry about with that then?
Well, I think there's several ones, but going back to some childhood issues as well, of that sort of thing of always having to prove myself and prove my intelligence. And so I want to get it right, and I want to come across that in a way that represents accurately my level of competence and my level of intelligence. Especially if you have to think, I've lived in different languages, and when you speak a different language, you automatically lose a lot of the language tools that you have available. So if you're trying to explain something, you do tend to sound less eloquent or than you do in your native language. But then what happens to your native language is that you start to describe everything as happy, sad, and simple vocabulary, and you forget a lot of your more nuanced language to describe things. And so I think that comes into it a lot as well.
I find it really interesting when I speak to you. You talk a lot about like intellect and like is that a big thing for you? Like intellect?
Yeah, because I come from a poor family. It's a song, and like
And I want to know the song.
that song. And I didn't have the money to go to good universities or to study everything I wanted to study and do everything I wanted to do. So when like you live in cultures, especially when it goes on like what your accreditations or what your titles are, then it's unfair because I could have more if I had the money to pay for the things I would have liked to have done. And so it's that sort of feeling as well of growing up and like, okay, being younger than my friends in the past. Now it's the tables have turned, but when I was young, like my friends were a lot older than I was, so it was like that sort of thing of constantly having to prove my opinion mattered, and I did have something to say. And no, I can't quote all the names of psychologists and sociologists and politicians that philosophers. I'm very bad at remembering those types of things. And because I can't say it, does not mean that I haven't read a book or reflected upon the knowledge. And so many people, especially actually in Italy, use names of philosophers, psychologists, etc., when they speak to prove that it's got weight. Your argument has weight to it.
Yeah.
And you start to absorb the messages from the new cultures where you live as well.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing that you're because I noticed even with doing the podcast, there was an element of that worry there with that topic in mind. However, I'm going to say that you just did. I saw you did your own podcast, and speaking about people just doing it, right? Like leaving the fear behind, just doing it.
Well, that was I think the career summit that I took part in.
Yeah.
And in fact, very soon I'll be doing another one which talks about exactly the things we've been talking about today, actually, and it looks at like how we can sort of like look at those things, beliefs and expectations, and sort of like put them on trial, decide if they're valid or not, and then reframe it into something positive. But the last one I did was looking in the career summit, feeling ready and feeling confident. And that the idea was, like if you wait around until you feel ready or confident to do something, you'll never do it. And you've just got to try it sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works out, and sometimes you can see it's good enough, and then you can practice.
Yeah, and I think like I heard that that statement just after I took that little bit of leap to face some fears, and even though like doing that wasn't entirely enjoyable, it still felt good that I'd taken a step to face it. So I guess for like anyone who's had something they're thinking about to do or that's been at the back of their mind, they keep putting it to the side. Just taking that one next step closer to doing it is good enough.
Good enough.
That's going to be our sentence of today.
I know. You probably find yourself like repeating it to other people now.
But I don't actually like that phrase. I know, it's good enough. I don't actually like it.
But that's what I thought when I first heard it. It sounded like that thing of rather than successful, quite successful. And I was thinking, good enough. That sounds pathetic.
Yeah.
But then I realized in the trauma therapy of that thing of, okay, if you're trying to be a perfectionist, you have got to go with, because you're never going to think it's good. Maybe you can start to understand that it's good enough. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. And so when I start to integrate that message of, okay, it's because if I'm aiming up here, it will never be that. And I have to accept it. And so if I'm not going to do the things because it will never be here, then there's got to be a way where you think, all right, it's not perfect, but, and that's where the phrase good enough comes from there.
So in actual fact, for MJ that is struggling, actually that sentence, good enough, or that phrase, that'd be good for them, right?
Exactly. So you can experiment with the phrase successful enough.
How would I use that?
Well, every time you think you're not successful,
I'm
you can
successful
reframe
enough.
it. I'm successful enough.
Yeah, but here's my worry with that, is that then, saying this is my brain, that then puts limitations on me being successful.
Oh, where did that message come from, though?
Oh, no. Oh my goodness, this is why it's exhausting being me. I'm sure other people feel like this. I'm sure they do. I mean, it'd be quite nice to just be a fly by the seat of your pants kind of girl. I want to meet these people, the fly by the seat of their pants kind of people. Embrace that.
Sure, this conversation has come up with us before somewhere, but that's idea. If you go from one extreme to being like a beach hippie, like, do you think that's good? You were quite successful a minute ago. Now you're like, oh, I'd love to like be influenced by these like beach hippies. And, like,
because it just like that's I know. You're so right. I've gone from one extreme to the absolute other. So can I be like really successful and also be a beach hippie? Can I have a beach hippie sounds quite nice right now because my brain's so full. I mean, some days you might want all the success in the world, and then other days you might just want to be a beach hippie.
Well, exactly. And maybe like it's like that thing of work-life balance. We can have like success and hippie balance too.
Like that's my aim in life. That is my aim. I've realized I want to be very successful, but also beach hippie.
So a successful beach hippie.
A successful beach hippie. That's my aspirations in life.
Well, I'm glad we solved that one.
Yay! That's another job for me to do. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. I love all these little phrases that we've come up with to help us solve problems. Good enough. Maybe just a beach hippie.
Successful beach hippie.
Successful beach hippie.
What does it look like to be a successful beach? Rather than what it looks like for Louise to be successful, what would it look like for a beach hippie to be successful?
Yeah. I want to get other people's perspective on this, of like what's been their kind of a narrative up until now, and like what do they think is like. I'm just curious, what do they think successful looks like to them, and what's their outlook? Yeah, I'm intrigued to see what other people think of this.
Yeah, or what are the messages that people have labelled themselves with, and where it's come from, and things. But the other thing that we had talked about before was where a lot of our discussion on this has come from is narrative coaching.
Yeah. So I'm really interested in the narrative coaching. I think because
before you go forward, though, could you explain to listeners what narrative coaching is?
Okay, so my take on it, you can correct me if you feel I'm wrong. See, this is a self-trust part. There we go. It's that story, like recreating the story, the narrative, and ways in which we can do it, but realizing the narrative that you've followed so far, and unpicking it, and I'm exploring within that the different tools and ways to do it, and it's quite interesting, and actually I feel it's quite comforting. I think that's why I like that style. It's quite comforting that you don't need to always be a worrier, whatever the title is. It's quite comforting that you can take steps to change that and to support yourself and others.
So it's exactly like what I was saying, like in the upcoming summit that I'll be doing is very much based on the concept of narrative coaching. It's something I love doing in my own practice as well. Like all these things of the things that you were told, where those ideas and beliefs and expectations come from. And then, because coaching is always about not just awareness, but forwards movement, looking at how to rewrite the narrative. So if anybody's listening and interested in narrative coaching, I, as an EMCC accredited coach, love working on that, and Louise as well as a trainee coach.
Yeah, and actually reading those books, like I wouldn't be able to quite off the top of my head the book that I'm reading now, but yeah, it's so interesting just to read it for yourself. If you're interested in changing like patterns and looking at yourself a bit closer, it's a really interesting concept of how you don't have to just keep being that same person. So yeah, reading up on that as an individual is really helpful. Really helpful. It's made me really curious of it. And I think that's where I am. Where I am at the minute is I'm very curious about myself and others and habits and where we started. Like we came into this world with like just we were just beings, and then all of a sudden we collected like baggage.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
We didn't ditch any of the baggage, but yeah, but I guess you can recreate and start all over.
I mean, start all over sounds again a bit extreme. Or we could do something that's good enough. That book did sound really interesting. So what I was thinking is maybe you could look for the title. We could put in the links,
yes,
like the book, and as well I could put
your summit,
any courses or the summit things in the link for people who are interested in.
Yeah, because I think if someone's listening to this and they're like, they can resonate and they go, oh, do you know what? Literally, I've said these things to myself so many times, but I'm tired of it. I don't want to be like it's not, you don't have to. You can change it.
I'm actually writing a course, a full length course at the moment called The Installed Self, which is literally on this. It looks at things hopefully in depth and comprehensively as well. So that was let's let the cat out of the bag. There, what I was doing.
I love that. I actually listen out now for those little cues when people go, I am, like those titles they give out. It's so interesting. Like, like, for example, someone might go, oh, I'm a clean freak. I don't know where we got the freak part from, but people do use that, don't they? Because they like to clean a lot. And I think I've been labelled that in my house. I've been labelled a clean freak a few times, or a moniker.
Never happened to me.
No. But yeah, I'm like everything in life. I'm either all or nothing. Like it's either everything's got to be pristine and tidy, or it's absolute chaos down. I guess just how I work. But yeah, those titles I'm now really like listening out for when people use them.
I think it's also important to listen out for that I'm not.
Yeah.
Like I'm not successful.
Yeah.
For example.
I'm not good at that. I know.
Yeah, exactly, because maybe it's not the case. And so
so for MD listening, you need to like listen out for those titles, like those little captions that you do yourself, but in others it's so interesting when you hear it and then you go, oh, why?
Yeah.
And we don't need to psychoanalyze everybody. That's not what this is about. That's not what I'm trying to do. Definitely not. I wouldn't know how to psychoanalyze anyone. You might, because you've done psychology. I don't know.
But forget that.
Is that what you've been doing? Have you been psychoanalyzing me the whole time?
There is very interesting, going back to that thing of coping strategies and the childhoods that people have. That I mean, a lot of what I've been doing is like, and I've seen it in so many other people who have had similar issues or similar things happen, that you become that. You're constantly like looking at other people and trying to understand the other person, because you're trying to work out, are they safe, basically, and so you end up like, and I'll just say analyzing everyone.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. You need to be, I guess, find a balance of just being.
That's what someone told me, and it's like very difficult. It's like
Yeah.
compulsion.
There's a song. There's a song about that as well. Balance is the way. Yeah, I'm going to send that to you.
I mean, absolutely, we can have his theme tones in the podcast. But again, a lot of it is like, I think the concept of balance, but now we're going to be going into a different subject, because a lot of
Take that
people,
for next one.
yeah, but yeah, exactly. But a lot of people like try and strive for this idea of balance, which is like a complete like equilibrium. But sometimes like that doesn't really work, and sometimes you've got to accept that we have different parts to us, and that sometimes we can be like this, and sometimes we are something different depending on the context and the situation. And I think a lot of us put this sort of stress about being balanced, and every time we fail at it, whereas maybe that's the wrong sort of goal, and we should just look for a good enough goal.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, like many of us are always using that phrase as well. I need to find some balance.
Balance is perfection, and again,
ooh, it's a vicious circle, right?
It is. On that note, I think we'll finish for today. But again, like, we'd love to hear your thoughts and the labels that you've given yourself. You can write to us in the comments, send us an email, and we'll put the links in the description as well.
Or if you're quite passionate about this topic, get involved. We'd love to hear about your stories.
Or yeah, if you're interested in coaching on this, again, I'm an EMCC accredited coach, and Louise is a trainee coach, but is still a practitioner, although a trainee. So
on that note, we'll say goodbye.
Okay, thanks for listening.